All right, we're recording, just so everybody's aware. Hopefully you're seeing the plan giving in your parish slide. And with that, I'm going to let Father Jim kick it off. Father Jim.
Thank you, Stacey, and thank you all for listening in today. I think this is the next step for us. I think in stewardship, when we talk about stewardship, we need to also think about stewardship in the afterlife, what we leave behind. And I served as a layperson before coming to the priesthood. I served as on the parish council of my church back in Minneapolis, and the priest there for probably 47 years, 50 years, was Father Anthony Cuniaris. You might have read his books, his Introduction to the Orthodox Faith, and he wrote probably another 50 books besides that. Very accessible stuff, but he was a real practical priest, a real sensible, practical person, which really guides the ministry of this department, because he was a huge influence on me, and it helped us to form the department in a couple of ways. One is that Minneapolis is not New York, and I'm aware of what New York looks like from anywhere that's not New York, and so that kind of guides our work. But those practical things that I picked up in leadership of the parish that Father Anthony was doing, and one of the key ones was ones that I wasn't even aware of, that was happening from the time I was a child there until the time that I started to really see the fruits of what he was doing. And it was in every bulletin, and we had bulletins every Sunday, and we had mailed bulletins as well. Every piece of communication, there was one line, all capital letters, and those things were just like they came off a typewriter back then. That's how things were done. It said, "Remember the church in your will. Remember the church in your will," over and over and over again. It was just repeated so that it became part of our DNA, part of our thought process, so that when we eventually went to our attorney or wherever we went to write our will or estate plan or whatever we were doing back then, we said, "Oh, I got to remember the church. I have to remember the church." And as a council president and treasurer, I saw those gifts come in on a pretty regular basis. People would always remember the church, whether it was 1,000 or 10,000. It was always really helpful. And sometimes when someone had done quite well, the gifts were much bigger. And the real event that turned my head on this was when I was the parish council president. A man named John Lagares, a sweetheart of a guy, called me up and he said, "My brother just passed away," and I gave him my sympathies, and we spoke a bit. He goes, "He remembered the church in his will," and it turned out this gentleman had left the church an entire block of properties in the uptown area of New York, worth millions of dollars. And it made me realize, yeah, uptown area of Minneapolis, Lake and Hennepin, if anybody knows where it is, right there, where his family had a restaurant. They had bought more properties in that area and turned them over to the church. And one line in the bulletin: "Remember the church in your will. Remember the church in your will." He remembered the church in his will, and I thought, wow, this is something that's untapped nationwide. We're not really telling people, reminding them to remember the church. Not that we're all going to have bequests of this size, but it doesn't matter. People need to be trained and taught, and as leaders, we need to remember to encourage those kinds of gifts. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for this. It's not just about the money. It's about stewardship. It's about our growth in the faith. People wonder why the priest has to know how much we give in stewardship, because it's part of our spiritual growth. It's part of our spiritual journey. So this is another part of it. It's our stewardship of the afterlife. So a couple of thoughts on the theological basis for plan giving. The quote from Paul is that everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand. That always reminds me of when we're little children, we ask our father for some money so we can go buy him a birthday or a Christmas present. I mean, that's how it is with God. We're only giving him back what he's already given us in the first place. And if we've done well, he's blessed us with a lot. We're the good stewards of the gifts that he's given us, and hopefully we've multiplied them and we're able to give back. When we leave a planned gift, we're passing on a legacy of our values, our vision, our life's work, and we're leaving something for those that come after us, empowering them to continue the ministry that we've started. So there's a lot of good reason in the current life and in the afterlife to be considering planned giving. In the Old Testament, we see King David, who understood this. He was denied, I don't know if you know the story in Chronicles, he was denied the privilege of building the temple. That was to go to his son Solomon. But he didn't mind. He gathered and equipped and empowered his son to build the temple. He gathered all the rare, expensive fabric, stones, metals, wood, everything that was needed for the building of the temple. And then he left it all to his son to build the temple. And when it was all done, he said, "But who am I and who are my people? Um, Everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand." So he's really saying to God, it all comes from you. All this abundance, he said, we provided for the building of the temple in your name, comes from your hand, and it all belongs to you. So he didn't care that he wasn't going to get to build the temple, but he left it for the next person. And that's really how we serve the church, because we're happy when the next person comes along to take over in our place. But as we leave our gifts to the church, for the next people to carry on ministry, it's really critical and it's really important to our spiritual growth, even as we see the end of our life approaching. So all of this abundance comes from your hand and it all belongs to you is the thought process. It's a simple, humble prayer that's really it's a basis of philanthropy for us. So
Father
in the
Jim,
spirit,
may I
yes,
interrupt a moment?
yes.
There's a question that occurs to me, and I'm thinking it might occur to other people, and that's the understanding of, or what kind of spiritual maturity does it require, to understand that we all, work hard in our chosen professions and earn the livings that we earn and, have the lives that we have. But how do you make people understand that they're all gifts from God? I've always found that to be a challenge. I feel like I say it and I might even write it or, in our stewardship materials, but how do you really educate somebody to take it into their heart that everything that they have is from God? I always find that a challenge, and I just
Yeah,
wanted to pose that question.
It goes completely against our Western way of thinking that this is mine, I earned it, this is mine, I worked hard. As hard as you work, that's how much you can make, and that's my money. If that person's not working hard, it's because it doesn't have money, it's because they're not working hard enough. But there's a lot more that goes into that equation. We all know that, opportunities, gifts, you know, windfalls that come your way, opportunities that come your way, they come to some people, they don't come to others for a lot of different reasons. And if we've been blessed with, opportunities, we have to realize we didn't choose our parents. God gave us our parents. We were born to the parents we got and had the opportunities placed in our way that we had. So, there's a couple quotes further on about the responsibilities that God puts upon Paul actually puts on people who have wealth. And I was just going to touch on that in a little bit, but it does go against our way of thinking, Stacey. That's a really good point. Um,
Okay, please, I'm
well,
sorry to interrupt.
no, not at all. Please keep interrupting because I want to keep if I'm getting off track or not touching on a subject, let me know. But a planned gift is it expresses our values and our commitment to the church and to the ministries of the church. And a planned gift is an expression even of our family values. So as parish leaders, we need to help our people to expand their understanding of stewardship to include their wealth as well as their income. Then remember that, include their wealth as well as their income. Because we talk about percentages of giving based on income. We also have to remember we give out of our wealth as well. And remind people that what we've been given to us will pass to someone else, and that we have to make sure and take care that a portion is given back to God who blessed us in the first place. Everybody's heard it said, and there's all kinds of jokes and cartoons about you can't take it with you. But what follows that thought, you can't take it with you, is that our only faithful choice is the careful distribution of our wealth according to the faith that we carry. This is what I said when Paul wrote to Timothy. He said about those who have riches, he said, command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up for themselves treasures and, a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they will take hold of the life that is truly life. Because so often as we gather up things on earth, we start to forget that this is only temporary. And we forget that we need to be preparing for the next life. This life is only preparation for the next one. So Paul's telling us that we're called to invest in the kingdom to come. So the parish that nurtures this understanding of stewardship, they're going to be blessed with increased financial strength, but more importantly, that parish will become a community of faithful people that are inspired by their role. They're faithful stewards of the gifts they've received, and you'll see people rising to the occasion, as you said, Stacey, spiritual maturity, that they know where the gifts come from. We have a chairman of this department at this point who has been very blessed. And he remembers that, and he's a great example to have as a chairman of the department. We need to look to people like that. For example, people who give out of their wealth, not for attention, not for recognition, not to be at the head table, but because it's what they're called to do. And that really is why we give. It's not for recognition, because our reward is in this world, as God said. Our reward should be in the next world. So we know from Scripture that blessings have responsibilities. To whom much is given, much will be required. We've heard that many times. In Jesus in the Gospel of Luke, he's telling us our possessions are not only for our enjoyment, but for the benefit of the people and the world around us. So we're supposed to spread it around. We're supposed to spread it around for all to participate and to enjoy and to help other people. This one last thought on this section, I'll finish up. Our responsibility to give is just a response. When we give, it's only a response to God's blessings in our life. It's all that we're called to do, is to respond with generosity. Stacey, want to take the next section?
Sure. So we're going to shift gears a little bit now and talk about the opportunity that exists. And for Harry Ruska and maybe one or two other people, you saw a lot of this math on the screen during the workshop at the Clergy Lady. And from I didn't include the citations with them, but for example, the first line about $68 trillion in wealth being transferred, that comes from a CNBC story in October of 2021. And it was a research and consulting firm that developed these numbers. I didn't just kind of pull them out of a hat. I do want you to know that they have some basis to them. And the $30 trillion that will be transferred by baby boomers alone came from a Forbes magazine article from November of last year. So I present this only as, a way of saying there's an opportunity out there. And that's supported by the idea that less than 5% of all people have a will. I have to sheepishly raise my hand and say that my wife and I at the present time don't have a will. There's no reason for it.
Well, remember the church when you do it. We just lost your sound, Stacey. We just lost your sound.
Am I back?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm not sure which of those bullets that I fall under. I don't think it's procrastination in this instance. It might be the second and fourth bullet for me personally. I don't think I have enough assets, and I don't know how to do it. But those are excuses. When our parishes implement a planned giving program, you're in the sales parlance overcoming those objections or obstacles because you're motivating people to do it. And when you again, Father Jim and I will probably repeat that line way too many times, but when you remember the church in your will, you're encouraging parishioners to plan and to have a will and to remember the church in it. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. This is more about the opportunity. So I would hazard to guess that most of us have, wealth in stocks and property being, our homes. And when you create a planned giving gift, or when you offer a gift from that, it's not affecting your, day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month income. So, planned gifts are not the exclusive providence of the wealthy, certainly. They are within everybody's grasp who desires to do it. And if we offer the educational opportunity and show people how they can do it and teach them what planned giving means. 2/3 of people don't understand that planned giving means you make a charitable gift during your life that is then executed when your will or estate plan goes into place upon your passing from this life to the next. And I think this last bullet is as true with stewardship as it is with anything. Ask. The number one reason a gift is made to a church, a school, a hospital, a nonprofit of any kind is because they were asked. It's just that simple. And I think a lot of our parishes have found that out through stewardship. That we weren't asking either often enough or in a way that framed the ask to inspire people to want to give. So that's why Father Cañares' line is so important. Remember the church in your will. That is an ask. That is a soft ask. It's not posed in the form of a question. It's really, more in the form of a challenge. But when you ask, you're cultivating generosity within the people of your parish. And Father Jim alluded to this earlier. People who engage plan giving usually increase their regular donations, regular financial stewardship to your parish. And that's why it's a logical extension of your stewardship program. That first line, I'm not sure where the support for that came from. I was going to try to find it kind of on the fly here. But a planned gift estimated to be 200 times the size of a donor's largest annual gift. That is a staggering number. Think of your parish's stewards and what their financial stewardship is on an annual basis. Now multiply that by 200. And I would be willing to bet that you'll get some pretty staggering numbers. So along with stewardship, hold on a second, please.
Sorry.
No worries. If you can.
No, that's not nice.
No, it's okay. Could I ask you to put yourself on mute for just a few more minutes?
It is.
Okay. All right. So back to our education. And again, many of you have been or are stewardship chairs and have had to educate your parishioners about stewardship. And here are the four areas where parishioners need to understand what's needed through their annual stewardship. We're all very aware of that. Most of our parishes have been at one time or another through a capital campaign because we've wanted to build a new facility of some sort. And there again, it's donations for a time until a goal is met. Emergency philanthropy. Gosh, think back over the years, wildfires in Greece, or any of the things that IOCC, does to address emergency needs. And then the fourth one there, obviously, is planned giving. And this is the big key. Parishioners have to believe and understand that a gift that they're giving to their parish isn't going into the general fund, to just pay the light bill, to pay, heat and for janitorial supplies. That's not what people want to do with their planned gift. They would like to, more than likely, or at least in my experience, they'd like to support a ministry, whatever the ministry of your parish might be that is near and dear to their heart, from feeding homeless to clothing people to prison ministries, whatever the ministries are of your parish that has touched their heart, that's more than likely how they're going to want to direct their planned giving gift. They're not going to necessarily want to see it go into the general operating fund. Does that happen? Sure, on occasion. But that's also not always the best use of it. Planned gifts are best used for ministries and for interaction with the community. Jamie Senos, did I see you have a question out there? I could use a break, so go ahead if you want to jump in with your question.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stacey. Just wanted to underscore what you're saying. It makes total sense. As stewardship leaders, everybody who's on the phone, one of the most important things we can do as a reminder to our parishes is to help them understand that to run this successfully, to run this cathedral, you got to separate operating costs versus CapEx. Operating costs is just the way you said, Stacey. It's what it takes to run the church every day. CapEx is everything other than that piece. And I think the minute we delineate between the two, suddenly the light bulb goes on with our parish that, oh, that's right. My stewardship contributions are feeding a much bigger picture. And the other thing I wanted to share too, I think you also hit on putting things in terms of reasonable costs. When we think about, planned giving, and you say, well, how am I going to afford that? I got so many other costs in my life. Well, if you break it down into a couple dollars a day, multiply that by the number of weeks, and then add, 20 years, suddenly that's about $30,000. And what a wonderful gift that would be to the church, is just to say, instead of buying coffee from Starbucks, I'll buy coffee from Dunkin' Donuts for half the cost. And that difference of a couple bucks is what I'll put aside today for my planned giving will each day over the next number of years. And suddenly we can afford it if we just break it down into manageable day-to-day costs. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Jimmy. And I think, again, with proper parishioner education, none of these loses out to the other. And I know that's a tough pill to swallow and sometimes hard to believe. But if you can delineate the difference between those four types of needs and areas of generosity, I think people will see the difference. Get my. Are we still?
Stacey,
Yeah.
Stacey, this is Harry. I just want to let we've had a planned giving program for now, I want to say 5 or 6 years maybe, and it just amazes me. And it's kind of what Father Jim was saying, that where you would get contributions or the gifts is from people from sources you never ever would have expected.
Right.
And I can't tell you, we had a situation where a parishioner was, had been fairly elderly, and he had served the community and for so long, and the choir, and did a lot of the landscaping work for the church, and he donated his time, and and then he passed away, and then out of the blue, we received a gift from his estate, and it was one of those things where we never really approached him one-on-one, and we never really recruited it. It just, back to what Father Jim was saying, we put it out there, and people thought about it, and they remembered it, and it was because it was always there as a reminder, and that was a wonderful surprise, and it helped his his legacy a little bit, and it was a wonderful gift from his heart, and we never ever expected it, ever. We never would have predicted.
Yes, and Harry, I know who you're referring to, but I've also heard of that happening multiple times in multiple parishes. The it's always the quiet ones you got to watch out for, right? And I mean that in the most positive way possible. But I think still those parishes that receive those gifts, when they're least expected, are parishes that are demonstrating their ministry and their purpose, whether that's, within their community itself or the community at large that they serve. And that's where, those gifts can come as such a great surprise. From where you absolutely least expected. Yeah. I'm going to stop sharing one thing and share with you another before we kind of go to the last slide. We didn't have a heck of a lot that I wanted to talk about, but I'll also put it out there. If there are any questions, feel free to raise your hand or put them in the chat. Father Jim has been 19 years with the department. You're on mute, Father Jim, sorry.
That might be a good thing. It'll be 20 years in June, 20 years in January.
Wow. And one of the things that has come along, and Father Jim, please give me an idea of the years, is when did the department start putting out materials on plan giving, living wills, and all of the things that are on the department's website?
It was in the teens, to the early 2010s, 2012, 2013. Lou Kirkos in Detroit and I started spearheading it, and that was when we really put together a full set, including a living will and the rest, a full ministry package dealing with end-of-life issues. Gotcha.
So now, can everybody see the documents as simple ways to make a planned gift?
We see a mountain in the water. An island.
Ah. Shoot, I thought I was sharing my screen. Got the document up. Anything now?
I see it.
Simple ways to make a planned gift, yes.
Yeah. So I just happened to grab this from the GoArch website. It's one of the documents that's up there right now. And it really spoke to what Father Jim and I wanted to achieve here tonight. And that's, that planned giving is doable right now. in your parish. You don't have to have, major instruments in place. Your parish doesn't have to have a foundation. It can simply take some very simple steps like the ones you see on your screen. And this is on the GoArch website. Father Jim, could I impose on you to put in the link to the planned giving materials, stewardship.goarch,
Yeah, I'll get it.
and whatever the rest is. Father Jim will put that up there. But a lot of these materials exist online already, and they're there for you to take and use for your church's purposes. You can receive life insurance policies. You can receive stock transfers. All of these things are possible, without having to have a lot of things in place. A lot of technical instruments. In my parish in Columbus, Ohio, we did establish a foundation, but even that is its own separate entity, and people can designate their gifts to the foundation, or we typically at the end of each year in December and January, we'll receive 2 or 3 gifts of stock donations, and we rely on a parishioner to act as our intermediary to turn over the stock from its value to cash, and then the cash is the donation to the parish. But again, that does not require anything more than somebody with the skill set to do it. And while I'm at it, it's another way to involve someone in the life of the parish, by drawing on their talents. I have to believe that almost all of our parishes have, somebody who is in a financial planning, stock trading, world. And it's a great way to draw them in to bring those talents to their parish.
And we can
Go ahead.
give, Stacey, giving gifts of appreciated assets. At year end, you can actually have a campaign to remind people that they can give gifts of appreciated assets and they have no tax consequences. They get the tax write-off, but they don't pay on whatever gain they have. So it's a win-win for the church and for the individual. And we need to get that into the DNA of the parish. The resources we created were to make it. We called it the Eternal Light Society, but you could name it whatever you want. But every year you could recognize those people who have planned to make a gift and committed to it. And also at the same day, you could recognize those who have passed and have made a gift. Have an art ecclesia for those who have committed to it for the living, and for those who have passed, you can have a memorial and remember them every year and let people know that this is how your legacy lives on. You'll be remembered as a benefactor, a plan giver. Sorry, Stacey, for the interruption.
No interruption at all. That was great information, Father Jim. And if I can, I'm going to switch back. Does anybody see the
Resources? Yes.
The PowerPoint? Okay, so to kind of round out our conversation, the Archdiocese is not only recognizing planned giving as an essential tool for our future planning, but it's putting resources toward it. And Father Jim, if you kind of want to pick up the ball and run with it from there, please.
Yes, absolutely. When the Q&A, I'd love to talk about the existing resources, so you know what you have is in your hands now. But in the early part of this year, Elaine Allen, who's the Director of Administration at the Archdiocese, contacted me and a few others and said we were going to allocate funds in the budget and get it approved to focus on the parishes. This is not on the Archdiocese or even on the metropolises, except to in the ways that we can assist parishes in developing planned giving and training them on how to do that planned giving and giving them the resources. Because it takes training and understanding the mindset, the tools, the way we go about developing a planned giving program. And so there will be tools and training, and I'm not sure what form it's going to take. We're going to meet in September to go over it. Well, I was asked to check a couple of different organizations that do training, and one of them was a Lake Institute at Indiana in the Lilly School, and I talked to another group as well. and I'll make that presentation. And I think, it's still in the process of being sorted out, but the focus is the parishes. This is not anything else, and it's only to benefit the parishes, because these kinds of gifts, they don't hit your allocations, they don't hit your payments to the archdiocese. This is to affect the long-term viability of our parishes out there, because the long-term view is what we need to be concerned with, that the churches aren't just here for our funeral, but for our children's, our grandchildren's grandchildren, to be ongoing in ministry, because there are a lot of parishes that are just managing to get by. And these kinds of gifts and these kinds of plans, not only do they collect assets, they cast a vision for a long-term view of the parish, because so many of our parishes are really in fetal position, just trying to survive from festival to fundraiser, and this is to give them a long-term view. So many times we finish paying off our mortgage and we forget that we need to keep setting aside that money for capital improvements. And when we do that, the benefits are incredible, and we stay ahead, and we stay up with things, and people see us as good planners and responsible planners. Stacey, I can see you. Do you have something you want to add?
No, I'm smiling and laughing in agreement more than anything. Just because, people see capital, whether it's, a mortgage or anything else, capital related, they see, oh, paid off and we're done, and don't have to give any more to our so there are some schools of thought where people see it as something to rally around, right, when you have a mortgage, and then when you don't, that sort of falls away. And I'm not saying that's a right school of thinking. It just seems to be one that is often too predominant in our parishes, and we need to move away from that with this kind of forward thinking and plan giving.
Could I share a screen just to share a success story for you, the people to see? Is that okay with you?
Yes, as soon as I can stop sharing.
Okay.
And you tell me.
Where am I? Okay, window. Okay.
So am I off?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
There it is. This was the experience we had in Minneapolis, and I just want to show you. It's not a big parish. It's a reasonably sized parish, but they started a foundation in the 70s. It went dormant. They didn't do anything. Not a foundation. They started the idea of gifts to the church. It doesn't have to be a foundation, but they had about $5,000 they'd collected for long-term gifts to the church. But in the 90s, we gave it new life, and we started to ask people to consider it again. And if you look at what they did, the estimated value now is $2.5 million that they have set aside, but that's on contributions of only a little over 700,000, and they've given away $520,000. So you can see that with a long-term perspective and prudent investment, not crazy aggressive or too conservative, a church can really start doing some incredible work. And then if you look at what they've done with the money, let me see if I can go to that. They've been giving to these kinds of things. Every year they give money to philanthropic organizations. This is just the 2020. They gave away $64,000 to Minneapolis area charitable organizations. Can you take the screen back, or do I have to stop sharing? How do I do that?
You can, where you hit share, hit stop sharing, and it'll just stop automatically. Or should, he said confidently.
Okay, we're good. So I just hope that inspires you to realize that starting small, there's no problem with that, and it builds on itself, and the momentum grows, and people start to believe in it, and it's like at first you're pushing the rock up the hill, but then on the other side, that rock is rolling downhill and collecting a lot of moss on its way down. So.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that, Father Jim, because it's a tangible, real world, real life kind of experience. In terms of presentation, that's all Father Jim and I have to offer right now. we'd be happy to entertain questions. There's still plenty of time left. If there's anybody out there that has questions about anything. Marion, did you want to get in here and ask a question? Oh, sorry. Okay.
Stacey, if I could talk a little while we're waiting
Please.
for people to speak up. The resources we actually have an Orthodox living will. It came from a place that does living wills in general, but we had them orthodoxize it, which means we took out the cremation parts and other parts that just weren't appropriate and added parts that were helpful. And you get it from Orthodox Marketplace for $2. Now it's I think it's viable in every state, and it's a good tool. We wanted this to be an end of life package for us to do ministry, not just to get people to commit money, but to help them plan, because churches deal with death a lot and end of life issues a lot, but individuals, thank God, they don't. But they also don't know what to do when those times come. So there's a lot of guidance. There's a document that says, preparing to say goodbye, do you have a plan? And it goes through item by item what you need to think about when you're talking about end of life issues. But that living will could actually help you in kicking off a planned giving program, because you could say, listen, we have living wills in the office that are Orthodox living wills, and they're produced by the Archdiocese, and we'll give them away for free. If you're interested, give us a call and stop by and pick one up, or we'll send one out. And then you know who's thinking about end of life issues, and maybe you could broach the topic of remember the church in your will in a more personal way. When you send out that living will, you could also include information on remembering the church in your will.
Brother Jim, I started sharing the screen again. I don't know if it's up or not.
Yes, perfect.
So this is the page on the Go Arch website, and it's got here, planned giving folders and brochures, and you can go on and see different kinds of sample documents. The simple ways to make a planned gift was the one that I just picked earlier. But this is just a little sample of what you can find on the Go Arch website to use in your parish. Nope, I thought I had another page called up. I did not. Services. There is a lot here, and sometimes I know I'm guilty of it, that I sort of forget all of the resources that are available online. And in this case, we're talking about planned giving, but it applies to stewardship as well. There are a ton of things, from bulletin announcements to sample letters. There's, to quote a great clergyman, there's no such thing as plagiarism in the Orthodox Church. So encourage you to go to look at any and all of these resources that are available online. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and stop blabbing and see if
Michael has a question. Michael Manick.
All right, Mike Manick. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, no problem. Here, I'll come back and so you guys can see me again.
Thanks.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you guys were talking about today, and I think that is like a big opportunity that we're missing out on, because I know just in the fact of the wills, and even like leaving beneficiaries for like life insurance policies, retirement, accounts and things like that and stuff are, I think there's opportunity there for people that may not have the means to, give right away or something like that, but maybe they might put aside, money into an account for which they, when they, upon their passing or at a designated time, that they would, the church would receive funds. But yeah, I mean, it's really something that I think a lot of us don't bring up in our churches or don't discuss enough, as a viable way to give. There was something that I'd come across in the last month too, is through some of the stuff, the resources and stuff that I listened to, and with regards to like stewardship, and that being the because I think like a lot of us are maybe we give like a certain amount or whatever, and obviously we know that God calls us to do more than a lot of times what we normally do, because we don't look at it. We look at it from from our own point of view. Like we from the Western thought, like I earn this money, it's mine to do what I want to do with it. And, a lot of the other thing is like, where I choose to designate that money, that's my choice. And that's my that's my freedom. That's my freedom of choice and that kind of stuff. And we don't look at it from the point of view of, these are things that are gifts. They're not earned, but they're actually gifts from God. And but I think like from where we are now to where we need to be as far as just the way that we think about stewardship, I think doesn't just happen overnight either. And as we struggle as Orthodox Christians, I think we also struggle in how to utilize our stewardship or how we give too. So that's also a struggle that we go through, not just with the passions that we fight against, but also with how we manage our time and how we manage our finances and how we manage our life. I think that it's an incremental thing. I know somebody that, like I said, what the resources we're talking about, it's kind of like when we look at during Great Lent and the ladder of divine ascent, we don't just reach heaven just by taking a couple steps. I mean, we have to go step by step on this ladder, and sometimes we stumble and we have to start, we have to keep, we have to climb, and we have to climb every day, and sometimes we stumble and we fall down a couple of flights, and we have to get back up again and keep climbing. I think that we have to look at it, that stewardship in that manner too. And even like in our parishes too, as well, that, we have to look at it as an incremental thing, as an incremental growth, and something that, as we grow individually, our churches also grow incrementally as well.
Muted, Steve.
Yeah.
I muted myself. And I think to Michael's point, the Orthodox Church, kind of like with stewardship and tithing, is late to the ball game. There are hospitals and schools certainly, and churches of other types, religious institutions of other types that are doing this very well already. And there's part of me that thinks that the element of surprise is on our side. And that if, we start talking to our parishes about planned giving and say, remember the church in your will, you're going to catch someone off guard, and they're going to say, yeah, I gave to that school that educated my kid, or I gave to the hospital that took such good care of me when I was sick, but I haven't done anything for my church yet. And that element of surprise may also benefit all of our parishes in the receipt of planned gifts.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interject, but I think sometimes too, we gotta put our pride aside too, like don't make it about, it's like, oh, well, it's a result of the effort that I put into it. That's how it's going to be. Sometimes like as stewardship, leaders or something like that, we think that it's on us. It's really not. I mean, we are God's hands and mouths and everything. We do it through that, but it's that giving is going to come from, from the Holy Spirit inspiring others to do so. So, and we're just enabling that to happen. So it really doesn't come, it's not like a matter of our effort, that this happens. So I think we gotta think about it, from that point of view, is that, we might say something, but it's not our words but it's actually, the Holy Spirit that's speaking to them, and they're we open their ears, and maybe the Holy Spirit spoke to them and they listened.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. I want to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Is there anybody else? We're just at the top of the hour. And as always, we want to be respectful of your time. If there's anybody that's got a question for Father Jim, now is the time to get in here. Yes,
Stacey, I,
Marianne.
my hand isn't working. I just have a couple questions just to go over. Thank you,
Please.
Father Jim. You were very clear in a lot of things, but I was writing a lot. The one that you do every Sunday that says, remember the church in your will. Do you hand out like an envelope with something in it, or is this printed in the Sunday bulletin?
It's in your Sunday bulletin, your print bulletin, if you do one, which is a good idea. Also on your online bulletin, if you're using Bulletin Builder or Constant Contact, put it in there. Just repeat. Whatever you printed, if you have a newsletter you send out. I know most churches are moving to electronic, and some don't do a Sunday bulletin anymore. I'm still of the school that feels when someone walks through your door, it's good to put something in their hand. And so we do bulletins. But to just have it wherever you have a printed item, to have it included.
Okay. And I just have a couple other things. I don't have a whole lot. Do you feel as though financial planners that you had in all these different churches I'm sure they're good, but do you think it's a high rate that people will go to them? You know what I'm trying to say?
From within your own church, if you have a financial planner, you mean, would they go to your own planner or?
No, yeah. I mean, do you think that it's a good thing? I mean, do you see it that it's a success or just average? Maybe I can put it that way.
Well, I think any way you can raise awareness of this program, and if you bring in speakers, maybe a panel of plan givers, if you have a number of people who are in financial services, they could give a presentation, understanding that solicitation isn't really allowed, but they could let people know what they do and share the information that they have. I don't think it hurts. And maybe they would do if you give, I know some parishes where the financial planner that actually did the work said, if you give to the church, I will do my job for free or for a discount or something like that. So those are just different ways to think about it.
Yeah, I'm for that, but I just wanted a clarification if it really, that people really go to them. The other thing you said on the win-win for the church parishioners, it saves taxes for them. Did I understand you correctly?
That's gifts of appreciated assets. If you've had something that's appreciated, most often it's some type of security, stocks or bonds. You could gift it to the church and you don't have to pay taxes on the gain, and yet you get credit for the full amount of the value of the gift. Your church has to be ready to receive those kinds of gifts, which means you'll need to have a brokerage account, to receive the gift, probably at the firm where that person has their accounts, and there's a procedure for evaluating it, but your professionals can help you with that.
Okay, and then the last one for you, you said the Articlesia that you have it for the living that plan to give, that that they're going to give, and then also for the ones that are deceased that gave. Now, do you have that monthly or whenever the priest decides to do it?
No, I would say you could have an annual day. It's only a suggestion that you have an annual day of recognition for both. And there's a form in some of our documents on the plan giving page where someone, and it's a common practice for them to sign over an indication or a commitment to leave a bequest. So people know that that's coming. So the parish is informed in the event of their passing that they've been designated in the will. So however they choose to communicate that they've left something in their end of life planning for the church, then they could be included in those prayers. And I think it's just a way to keep it a spiritual event, and also to keep the idea in front of people in a really positive way, making this a ministry as much as it is a way to financially benefit the church.
Okay. And then Stacey, all I need from you is if we can get the titles with the things that you put up, like the opportunity, the theology basis. I was trying to write everything, and of course, trying to listen, I missed some of that.
Oh,
And I like to go
Well,
over those things. And then
sure.
the website, I think Father Jim was going to give us the website that we can go to Go Arch.
It's in the comments. I put it in the
Stewardship Go
comments.
Arch, was it?
Yeah, it's in the comments. But if you just
Okay.
go to stewardship.goarch.org, stewardship.goarch.org, you can scroll down to plan giving. It's the very last item on the main stewardship page, stewardship.goarch.org.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I think that's it. That's all I.
Marion, I will make sure to send everybody on the call tonight the slides. And if I can, I'll send a link to the bigger presentation that was done during Clergy Lady. Because really, I took that and compressed it way, way, way down.
Yeah, it was hard to read.
So yeah, I'll be sure to send all of that. And then, we also post these recordings of the video conferences on the Metropolis YouTube page. So the last one with Bill Morrison from the Antiochian Archdiocese, that's on the Metropolis of Pittsburgh YouTube page. And you can go and kind of watch it and start and stop it and go through it at your own. This one too, you'll be able to go through it at your own pace.
So then you'll be
Okay,
ready
thank
for
you
the
so
test.
much.
She'll be ready for the
That's
test.
right.
There's a test next week, Marion, so check your notes. Over your notes.
Surprise.
I tried.
All right, well, I don't see other hands raised. I'll give one last call for questions, and if not, I will turn back to poor Father Jim, who's had to talk so much this evening, and give us a closing prayer.
Give a priest a microphone,
I
we'll
have-
talk a long time, so
I have one question for Father Jim.
sure, Dave.
Please, go ahead, David.
You mentioned that you have a set of documents on this for your parish on this subject. Would you be able? Is there any way that you could share those?
Actually, the documents are on the website. They were made for everyone. So if you go to the plan giving page, that Stacey will put in the email, you can just scroll down, and there are a bunch of hot buttons. You can just click on those links and see all the different documents that are there. There's a lot of language you can use. There's a lot of how to get started with a plan giving program in your parish. And if you want the finished documents, they have them at the Orthodox Marketplace, but you can download them as well, so you don't need to pay for them. But it's Stacey, why don't you keep my email on your document that you send out so they can follow up with me or you as well. Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Father Jim.
David, all of that material, the living will and lots of other stuff is all online. But I'll send the link to that as well. Just made a note to myself, and I will get to it, if not later tonight, certainly tomorrow. So with that, Father Jim, go ahead, if you'd be so kind, and close us in prayer.
Through the prayers of our Holy Fathers, Lord Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us. Amen. God bless you all.
Amen.
Thank you all for your time tonight. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
September 22nd is the next planned date for a video conference. 7 o'clock on the 22nd of September. Thank you, everybody.
Stacey.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Stacey.
Have a good night.
Good
Bye,
night.
everybody. Have a good one.
Good night.
Thank you, Stacy.